Welcome to Marketing Cupcakes, a quantitative marketing podcast where we bring you the latest techniques in marketing analytics, data science, systems integrations, growth hacking, guerrilla marketing, and data architecting.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Marketing Cupcakes. I'm your host, Dave Gilbert. James is here as well. Today, we're excited to talk about a Martech Stack, specifically how you get the biggest bang for your buck with your Martech Stack. Because we all know that Martech is not cheap. As you grow, as you get bigger, Martech gets really, really expensive. And it's really, really valuable, and it's absolutely needed along so many fronts. But any way that we can optimize that stack is just going to be better for everybody all around. So we're going to start off, and James is going to talk about a few examples that he has from his past experience optimizing his Martech.
Yeah, so the company that I was recently with, we started implementing a bunch of different technology within our marketing. And some of that was an automation platform, an analytics platform, your core three, your CRM. We already had Salesforce, we had Marketo, and we also had Google Analytics that we were using pretty heavily. What we didn't recognize is we started looking at different technologies that would allow us to analyze our web behavior more. So we were utilizing a platform that was part of our third-party chat, and they were doing some analysis for us, and we were thinking, well, we need something that's a little bit more robust. So we started looking for analytics tools that could do it for us. Well, we didn't have the resources, and we didn't have a dedicated resource that dealt with Google Analytics, but as we did more and more research, we found we could do a lot of what we needed to do in Google Analytics without having to pay for an additional tool. And if we paid for an additional tool, a lot of times they would be actually using the data that we would structure in Google Analytics. So we had a marketing agency that we had hired that was going to run a lot of this analysis for us. We also paid for a tool to do some programmatic advertising, and we started running all this stuff together. And we paid for it, and what we found is that we actually were not getting a return on it. And so we started doing our own analysis outside of our agency and outside of what the programmatic advertising tool was doing for us. And we found that what our analysis was telling us is that we were doing things the wrong way and we should stop. So that's just one example. We had several more where we were going to be paying for additional things like another analytics tool that would layer over Marketo, when really all we needed to do was to explore a little bit more of Marketo's add-ons and implement the revenue cycle analytics tool that Marketo has, and look at some of the SEO stuff that they have right out of the box too. So we were able to do that, and that was able to save us a ton of money and a ton of time because we could do it ourselves just by getting the add-on and then make it optimize.
So let me talk to you a little bit about Enduur. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is when we first started implementing our own marketing automation. I mean, we know a lot of the different automation systems that are out there. And we're really familiar with a lot of the CRMs, and we're experts in all of them. But we wanted to look at what's going to be best for our company as we're starting. And we looked at a bunch of different ones. And what it really came down to for us, we were looking at marketing automation, and we were trying to choose between Infusionsoft and HubSpot. And Infusionsoft, as many of you probably know, is a lot less expensive. But there were some things that Infusionsoft didn't have that we were going to be using with a lot of our clients and with ourselves that HubSpot did have. And so we looked at Infusionsoft, and they had some add-on companies that we could use to get those same capabilities, like social listening or like tracking individual visitors on every page, blogging, etc. But when we started adding up all the costs, they were pretty similar in nature. And really what pushed us over the edge of choosing HubSpot is just they have such great training, and they really push you as a company to do best practices. And so I don't know if any of you have ever chosen a technology company based on their great service and training, but HubSpot really has great stuff, and so you should definitely check them out. But that was one of the reasons that we chose to do HubSpot over Infusionsoft, and I think it's really important that you choose the right marketing stack. But at the same time, we chose to use HubSpot's free CRM because we weren't at the point where we needed Salesforce really heavily yet, or a tool like Salesforce, and so we chose to go the cheaper route, which I'm sure we'll upgrade at some point in time. But for now, we're just sticking with that. So there was one other just article that I read recently by the company segment.com. And they actually just released an ebook on the modern marketing stack. And I thought it was really interesting going through there to see different ways that other marketers or chief marketing officers use their own marketing stacks within their companies. And at Segment, they had some really interesting ways of using their Martech Stack that I haven't used before, and I don't think James had used before either. One of the things that they did is they used an enrichment tool. And let me see if I can find that enrichment tool real fast. What was it called? Let's see. Clearbit. That's right. So there's a bunch of different data enrichment tools out there you can use, but they use Clearbit, and it's relatively inexpensive. I looked it up. But how they've used this tool is instead of asking for a lot of information on forms, for first name or last name or company information, they would only ask for email, and then when you filled out your email, they would enrich it with Clearbit's information. So that does a few different things for you. Number one, it helps you increase your conversion rate, which is huge, right? Because a lot of people don't want to fill out more information than they have. And then two, it gains other information that they might not be able to capture in the input fields. So that was a really cool feature that I thought they were using. And then they used some other tools, some predictive analytics tools, to increase their data enrichment, which can be a little cost prohibitive for early stage companies, a little less cost prohibitive for enterprise companies, medium to large companies. But they would use a predictive scoring methodology to help them determine who they should reach out to. And I thought that was a really interesting combination. If you have a chance, go download their ebook. It's really interesting and really good read. And the other thing they talked about on there is they talked about finding outbound opportunities with anonymous traffic. And what I thought was really interesting about this tactic is they would see somebody visited their website, and then they would send that information over to Clearbit to get company information back. And once they got that company information back from the IP address, they knew that somebody from a certain company visited their website. And then and this is stretching a little bit, I don't know how I would recommend doing this for most people, but they would just start emailing a few people at the company to try and see if somebody by chance had visited their website. And it was interesting. I think they got some interesting results, and they were really tactful about how they did it. You have to be careful about how you reach out to people in that manner. But at the end of the day, they knew that somebody from that company was visiting their website and that was interested, and they actually got some good results by just reaching out. And so I guess, that's one of those, going back to making sure you act on your leads as they come in. Don't just sit on the data and let your automation roll, but act on the leads as they come in. So those are two examples on optimizing, getting the biggest bang for your Martech stack early on.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to make sure that you, as you're looking at your technology, whatever you might be using, make sure that the ones that you are using don't overlap with things that you're actually looking for. We've talked a little bit about that, but it's pretty important because you can save a lot of money in that regard. When we were building our demand gen strategy at the last company I was with, it was imperative for us to get our budget as low as we could possibly get it because our budgets were cut due to reorganization. And that's stuff that happens in businesses. And the only way that we could do that was to identify all of our technology that we were using and how they overlapped. And that's how we were able to save a ton of money. Look at what all of them do and look at the details of what they do, because a lot of times technology will pitch something and they'll have a core set of services that they might offer, and that core set of services doesn't always get into the weeds like they actually can. So sometimes if you actually ask your technology vendor that you might have, if they do something, they might actually do it, and it might be an add-on that you could get. So something to think about. Technology is always growing and changing, and who knows, you could be part of a pilot program like Marketo did with their real-time personalization, and like they did with their account-based marketing. There was a ton of companies that were part of their pilot program just because they simply asked, when are you going to start doing things on an account level? So that's another 2 bits of sense there.
One last thing that I wanted to add in here is don't sacrifice your long-term strategy for short-term goals. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when you adopt technology, it becomes a real key piece of your strategy going forward in your company. And let's say that you adopt Marketo, or you adopt Pardot or Eloqua, one of these big automation platforms like HubSpot, etc. And you start implementing all their landing pages, and you might implement marketing automation and workflows. And you look at that for a second and you think that if you chose a different system and then you decided to migrate, there's a whole bunch of costs associated with that. So just because something is less expensive, really pay close attention to your long-term goals and try to measure the value of that, of saving those dollars early on. And if the value's there, take it, obviously. But there's also something to be said about looking at your long-term strategy and adopting something that you're going to use long-term versus short-term. Or one of the startups that I was at, we used a CRM early on in our company lifecycle, and it was called Solve 360, I believe. And it was a great CRM. It worked great for us early on, but we reached a point where we had to migrate to Salesforce, and that was really painful. It took a lot of time. I ended up doing all of the migration for us. It took a lot of effort, and we had to make sure we dotted all of our I's and crossed all our T's, and it was a real pain. And looking back, we saved a little bit of money by not going with Salesforce right out of the gate, but it took us probably equivalent amount of money to migrate all that data over. So in reality, we probably would have been better off just starting off with the product that we wanted to use in the first place. So I think when you're thinking through your MarTech, you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. Everybody does, but make sure you think about all the long-term goals, all the long-term strategy, short-term goals, short-term strategy. And then, like James has been talking about, make sure you look at everything the product does. And you know what? There might be some things in a product that they say they do, and it just doesn't work how you want it to. And that's okay. You can get something else if that's the case. But make sure you're exploring all the products for all their full features.
And if you're going to buy technology, buy ones that can grow with you and ones that are constantly changing. Because if you buy one that's so niche, eventually some technology might do exactly what they're wanting, right? And so you could migrate away from it anyway. So to Dave's point, you got to look at the growth. You got to look at if the technology can grow with you, and you also have to look at making sure that technology vendor, whatever it may be, whether it's in automation, CRM, analytics, that it's going to change. And it's going to adopt features.
Okay, guys, that's it for today. Please subscribe and please rate the podcast, and check us out at our blog as well, because we talk a lot about the same stuff a little more granularly. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Marketing Cupcakes, an Enduur podcast. For more great content and to stay up to date on the latest marketing techniques, visit enduur.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and rate the podcast. We'll catch you next time on Marketing Cupcakes.